A Price to Play, Australia's Sports Injuries Epidemic. Sport is more than just a pastime within the Australian community. It has shaped the growth and identity of the Australian population and has been known as the nation's religion. Daily, Australian sporting heroes are celebrated for their new feats, but the question is, should we really be celebrating something that is contributing to one of the most costly health problems the Australian community has seen? The main issue underlying this billion-dollar problem is Australia's lack of efforts in establishing a national body to guide sport safety policy and injury prevention schemes. Now, in order to establish what is possible for the future, we must first understand what has occurred in the past. Therefore, Australia's past dismal attempts to alleviate the growing problem will be addressed, with specific discussion of a few national and local attempts. Subsequently, a discussion will then be presented on two international models, including a brief look at the American Injury Prevention Campaign, known as Stop Sport Injuries, and a thorough investigation on New Zealand's Accident Compensation Corporation as a model for sports injury surveillance. Now to set the scene. Australia is often seen as a sports-obsessed nation, a society besotted with watching and playing sport. It would be safe to say that we have all participated in sport or recreational activity at one stage or another within our lives, and the Australian Sports Commission's most recent Exercise, Recreation and Sport Survey certainly supports this. The survey reported that 12.2 million people aged 15 and over, or 69.4% of the population, living in Australia, participated at least once per week in physical activity for exercise, recreation or sport in the year of 2010. It is impressive that these figures are present for Australian society, as it is a known fact that a lack of exercise is an established major risk factor for many chronic illnesses and premature mortality. However, we begin to see a catch-22, as injuries from sport and exercise are undoubtedly Australia's most underappreciated and costly health problem, affecting the elite, gold medal winning, right down to those involved in grassroots level participation. Since the mid to late 1990s, there has been a shift, with sports injuries increasingly being recognised as a significant public health issue and one that needs a strong preventative approach. Accordingly, sports injury prevention has become an issue of concern to many government agencies. However, the full extent is certainly unclear, as there is a lack of research undertaken in this area. The closest and most recent report, Sport Safe Report, was published in 2006 by Epidemic Private. The report stated two major findings. Firstly, sports injuries in Australia cost the community $2 billion each year. This figure takes into account treatment, rehab, recovery time and absence from work. The second thing the report stated was that 5.2 million Australians suffer sports-related injuries annually, with the highest risk age group for injuries being 18 to 24-year-olds. The common injury types and their approximate costs are shown in the table on the screen. Now for a brief look at the past. At a national level, Australia has had numerous attempts at organising an effective injury prevention coordinating body. I will now highlight a few previous efforts by Australia in this area. Firstly, the Australian Sports Injury Prevention Task Force was established in 1995 and was purely an advisory and coordinating body to promote a national perspective on sport injury prevention. The task force ceased to exist in 1998. In 1997, the task force released the National Sport Safety Framework, which recognised that sports injuries are a cost burden on both individuals and society. Since the late 1990s, the framework has still existed. However, there has been a notable lack of national leadership to implement this framework. Sports Safe Australia was established in 1996 as a collaborative national initiative, with its main aim to progress sports safety at the national level in Australia through the development of educational material and resources. A lack of infrastructural support and ownership of the problem, both at a local and state level, was a huge issue, and funding ceased at the end of 2000, and since there has been no national sports safety initiative present. Finally, the National Injury Prevention Plan. This has been the most recent initiative to emerge in the realm of injury prevention, being implemented in August 2000. Now, it is important to note the plan is irrelevant to the sports injury prevention sector, as the list does not include the prevention of sports injuries, as little is known about sports injuries and the risk factors associated. Moving on to the American initiative. The Stop Sport Injury campaign is a comprehensive public outreach program with the importance of sports safety in mind. The initiative not only aims to raise awareness but also provides education on injury reduction and highlights how playing safe and smart can enhance and extend a child's athletic career, improve teamwork, reduce obesity rates, and create a lifelong love of sport and healthy activity. Once the need for a campaign was established, research was undertaken to find out what sports presented with a high incidence of injury, and specific resources, including fact sheets and brochures for each sport, were developed. Other educational initiatives include public service announcements, posters, DVDs, electronic newsletters, an interactive website, and other social media. Having a nationwide impact, the program has used various media outlets and partnerships to increase awareness to the community and the grassroots level sector. Now a look at the gold standard. New Zealand undoubtedly holds the forefront for injury prevention, with astounding infrastructure to monitor sports injuries. The New Zealand Accident Compensation Corporation began operation on the 1st of April 1974 as a universal government-funded scheme based on an insurance policy that aimed to provide cover for all. As stated on the website, one of ACC's major goals is to reduce the number and severity of injuries and keep New Zealanders playing and engaging in the activity they enjoy. Due to the scheme covering the medical bills of all those injured playing sport, the ACC has the capacity to accurately determine the cost of treating sports injuries in New Zealand, and a precise depiction can occur of the severity of injury and determine the high-risk sports. Furthermore, the dense information available to the New Zealand authorities has enabled them to cut the incidence of serious sports injury. An interesting example is the use of mouthguards in rugby. This has increased from 67% to 93%, and convincingly, the related dental claims have fallen by 43%. It must be noted that in Australia, there is no organised body paying dental claims, and therefore no strong financial motivation to encourage mouthguard usage. Due to the ACC having fundamental financial interest in seeing the number of injuries decline, New Zealand are far more active in assembling preventative programs. As the New Zealand system carries the advantage of being a no-fault insurance scheme, it prevents sports participants from taking common law action against those associated with sporting events. Similar liability restrictions are needed in Australia to remove the fright of lawsuits that is developing among volunteers who cover sporting events. Okay, so where to from here? Well, it's pretty simple. Australia's passion for sport, recreation and exercise will never cease to exist, and in turn the injury epidemic will follow hand in hand. With the incidence of sports injuries in Australia reaching an alarming level, it is more than apparent that Australia is lacking in the Injury Prevention Initiative department. With New Zealand and to a certain extent America, running circles around the Australian system, offering world-class and groundbreaking initiatives to combat this ever-increasing concern. Something must be done in order for the Australian community to cease suffering from this rising economic burden. Henceforth, from the evidence collected, it can be concluded that Australia possesses the approach of having no overall plan. Okay, so to conclude, it is imperative for Australia to employ all or any of the following strategies. 1. Establish a national lead body with responsibility for sports safety and injury surveillance, and consider the provision of infrastructure. In doing so, explore the option of employing a New Zealand or American style system. Number 2. Form greater cooperation between the sport and health departments in Canberra to address cause and effect of sports injuries and to allow for a more coordinated approach to the issue. Number 3. Develop a nationwide database on injury occurrence for sport, involving as many sports organisations, hospitals and health professionals as possible. Number 4. Implementation of compulsory rules regarding mouthguards and protective equipment for required sports. Number 5. National and lead health organisations, sports clubs, sports facilities and individuals need to be articulated in the delivery of future sport injury prevention activities. Number 6. Accredited coaches and sports trainers in order to contribute to sports safety through limiting training mistakes and knowledge of appropriate injury prevention and management techniques. Number 7. Formal training of volunteers involved in sporting clubs and events in order to widely promote safe sporting awareness initiatives. Thank you for listening.